Are we ready to open the door for Jesus upon his return? Let's look at the parable of the waiting servants in Luke 12, verses 35 to 48. Luke 12:35. Be dressed in readiness and keep your lamps lit. As a household servant would have had the lamps lit for the owner's return, so do many of us leave an outside light on for someone we're expecting home soon. If they've been gone a long time, we may be dressed appropriately to help them. So must we be ready for the parousia, or second coming of Christ. Luke 12:36. Be like men who are waiting for their master when he returns from the wedding feast, so that they may immediately open the door to him when he comes and knocks. The picture here is one of expectant waiting for the household boss, coming from a wedding celebration and opening the door at his first knock. Live in joyful expectation of his coming, ready to meet him. Luke 12:37. Blessed are those slaves whom the master will find on the alert when he comes. Truly I say to you that he'll gird himself to serve, and have them recline at the table, and will come up and wait on them. Rather than be served, our selfless and loving Master Jesus will gladly serve us. Foot washing was not an empty gesture, but the way Jesus lives. Luke 12:38. Whether he comes in the second watch, or even in the third, and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. Romans divided the night into 4 watches, the Jews into 3 watches. The second Jewish watch was from 10 till 2 a.m., and the third from 2 till 6 a.m. An earlier or later coming of Christ makes no difference to those who are ready. Luke 12:39. But be sure of this, that if the head of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have allowed his house to be broken into. A second metaphor of waiting for Christ is the unexpected thief in the night. But we can be ready for the thief. Even in ancient times, families took turn on night watch, as we saw. Luke 12:40. You too be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. How do we get ready? How do we watch? We stay on the alert. We don't let the thief steal our faith. We pray. We guard our hearts. We watch our mouths. We guard against heresies. We draw near to God faithfully obedient to his commandments of love. Luke 12:42. Who then is the faithful and sensible steward, whom his master will put in charge of his servants, to give them their rations at the proper time? Jesus instructs every faithful steward, but it reminds us of other admonitions. Tend my lambs, and shepherd the church of God. The spiritual diet, given in due season, is very important to God. Luke 12, verses 43 and 44. Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he'll put him in charge of all his possessions. What should a preacher preach? Meat in due season, or worldly fluff that tickles the ears? Should he preach the Bible, or the philosophy of those who care more for the world's opinions? Faithful preaching has eternal rewards. Luke 12:45. But if that slave says in his heart, my master will be a long time in coming, and begins to beat the slaves, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk. Too much alcohol is not for Christians. We'd be tempted to let down our guards and become abusive. It's not time to slacken in our responsibilities to God and the church. Luke 12:46. The master of that slave will come on a day when he doesn't expect him, and at an hour he doesn't know, and will cut him in pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. If we neglect the worship of God, we'll not be ready for Christ's return. Our punishment will be ugly. This is Jesus talking, not an Old Testament prophet. Luke 12:47-48a, and that slave who knew his master's will and didn't get ready or act in accord with his will receive many lashes, but the one who didn't know it and committed deeds worthy of a flogging will receive but few. Contrary to the popular notion that ignorance of the law is no excuse, with God it is. The level of culpability depends on knowledge. Luke 12:48b, from everyone who's been given much, much will be required. And to whom they entrusted much, of him will they ask all the more. Just as national leaders have a grave responsibility to tell the truth and show forth good character, so do church leaders. Those who have been given a greater knowledge of God's holy word are thus held more accountable for how they live. The problem with being in the church for decades is the temptation to slacken off. Our problem in Western countries like America and Europe is that we no longer believe the Bible without changing it to suit the world. Yet now, more than ever before, we need to be reading our Bibles daily, pray more than ever, and be about our Father's business. Jesus is coming soon. Are we ready to open the door?